Hello, friends and family. Saturday the 12th, and times remain interesting. Yes, we've had some more folks pass away, which I will speak of because, again, these folks were significant to my life. But before that, I have two new additions to my collection, I'm happy to say. Some interesting developments here in Omaha, and we'll be talking about that later, but those developments allowed me to be able to pick up an album. The Peter Brötzmann Sextet Quartet Nipples. This is a reissue of an album he put out in 1969. This is free jazz of the highest order. Peter Brötzmann is a tenor sax player who has damaged his lungs permanently because he blows so hard, and actually it's been recommended to him several times, I understand, over the years by doctors to stop playing, which he still hasn't. Evan Parker, Dereck Bailey, Fred Van Hope, Bushy Nebergull, and Han Benink. What a lineup. This is very explosive. Peter Brötzmann's most famous album is Machine Gun, and for good reason. The title of the album, Machine Gun, really describes what happens musically well. But this is really probably just as intense, and really just, they mix it up so well. You can get a lot of folks together and just make a racket, but to get people together who can create this, what is the word? You create a space. It's almost like you change the atmosphere when good improvisation happens. This is a reproduction of the original with the snaking postcards. Really nice 180 gram pressing. This kind of music is not for everybody. And I heard from one viewer, or saw a comment from one viewer who I don't know, about the Universe Zero, that they checked it out and it wasn't for them. And many of you folks who may go and check this out, you might not like this, or you might not be able to understand what's going on. But this is fantastic music, and for those that have the ear and the temperament for it, Peter Brötzmann is one of the best. The Almost Music, which is a local store that I love, they're on Instagram, and recently Brad on his Instagram page had shown this album, and I thought it'd be gone for sure. Pop Goes the Electric Sitar. These records by Vincent Bell, these old cheesy records have just increased in interest and cultural value in a way since they came out, because they're so cheesy. It's like, we're going to make a buck off of this, and this is actually quite listenable. He does pop songs of the day, Going Out of My Head, and Eleanor Rigby and stuff like that. It's really so cheesy, it's cool. So I picked this up for like $5 as well. So yesterday, Friday, we get the news that Keith Emerson has blown his brains out. Supposedly that it looks like it's a suicide. He was 71 years old. I have no idea why why a person would commit suicide at that age. I don't know. But Keith Emerson's music was important to me. The Nice, starting with The Nice, and I did hear about Keith Emerson with The Nice before, because I'm so old, I heard The Nice before he formed Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So I've still got this album, Keith Emerson with The Nice. This is with his cool rock boots. Quite the showman, quite the show-off, actually. And I dare say that will be the one distinction I'll make about Keith Emerson in relation to some of the other musicians who have passed recently, who figure largely into my life. For example, Edgar Preuße, or David Allen. Their music touched me deeply, and the difference between the way their music touched mine and the way Emerson, Lake and Palmer's music touched me is that Keith Emerson was mainly about showing his skill. Here's another nice album, Elegy. Great Hypnosis album cover. And then the U.S. version of their very first album, The Nice. But that's the one thing about Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I still have some of their albums out. They have so many that I've had to put some away. It's like some of Emerson, Lake and Palmer's music, I love it a lot, but it's like you only have to hear it a few times because it gets kind of boring for me, okay? I remember before I knew what this was, hearing it on the radio, on FM radio, Take a Pebble by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I was intrigued by the atmosphere and the spaciousness of the sound, and I really wanted to know who it was. And Lucky Man on here is just a classic song. But my point is that, again, Keith Emerson is basically showing his prowess on the keyboard, and depending on why you listen, you only need to hear that a few times. I'll make a comparison. So like Emerson, Lake and Palmer compared to King Crimson of the time, because Greg Lake came from King Crimson into this band. King Crimson creates an entity, something to be dealt with, a whole thing. It's hard for me to put into words. Emerson, Lake and Palmer made this good music where the keyboardist and everyone plays well in the band, but it's more like attending a concert, like a classical concert, to see the players play well. The impact on me psychologically was not as heavy as, say, early Genesis, King Crimson, Tangerine Dream, stuff like that. But Keith Emerson, important musician. This is my favorite Emerson, Lake and Palmer album, though, Tarkus. I love the cover, and I love the concept and the sidelong track, Tarkus. I think it's one of the best keyboard-oriented progressive rock sidelong opuses that has been made, Tarkus. And then they started to hit the big time, which I don't. I'm happy for them, But boy, did they hit it, and boy, did they do it big time. I mean, they really went over the top. Pictures at an Exhibition. This is the perfect example of the album. They do a great version of it, but I've only listened to this all the way through just a few times, because as much as this is good, maybe actually listening to Mussorgsky's version by an orchestra is just as good, if not better. And then this was a big album for them, and deservedly so. Brain Salad Surgery. Excellent album. Excellent. Yeah, with the H.R. Geiger cover that folds out. Big hit off of this one. A Trilogy. Wonderful album. I have their other albums. They had, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, because they were so massive, they made millions of copies of the records. So once they faded, you can find those records easily in thrift stores all over the United States, I know. So as a result of being able to get those records cheaply, I have most of them, but they're in the closet. But I wanted to say a word about the passing of Keith Emerson. I'm sorry that whatever his circumstances were that he had to kill himself, I wonder if we'll ever know. He left some great music, and we're at that age, we're at that age. I've said that before. Someone else who passed away on the same day, who's not as well known, but is known to me, is Bruce Geduldig of Tuxedo Moon. Now, I just have a couple records. Let me try to pull those so I can. China Tuxedo Moon. Just got a couple, yeah. And really the main thing I have is this. I used to have a Tuxedo Moon collection, and I sold it. They were one of those albums, those bands that are kind of murky, like Dark Water. It's not always clear what's going on, and some things stand out, and other things it's kind of like, either you get sucked in or you get bored. Okay, honestly, about Tuxedo Moon. But one of the main people from the band, Bruce Geduldig, he just died yesterday too, Friday. And so we'll commemorate his passing as well. These bands, these lesser known bands that I talk about, Bruce is not even on this particular album by Tuxedo Moon. But all this music is worth investigating and worth finding out about. So rest in peace, Bruce and Keith. More developments happening here musically for me. I'll be sharing them, some possible new bands coming up. For a minute there, I had talked about putting the Norman and the Rockwells EPs up for sale. Still, I haven't gotten to it. Just thought I'd mention it because that's not why I'm here, is to try to, sell you stuff. I get on here and talk because I want to. I'll get back to trying to sell some records in a minute. Maybe.